Welcome back to the program. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Now, since the 23rd of May 2024, when the post Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, was reinstated by the local government council, there has been palpable fear in Kano, especially with series of injunctions coming from court, either reinstating or removing either Adobayero or Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as the Emir of Kano. The latest, of course, court ruling again has asked that Lamido Sanusi Lamido vacates the seat of the Emir of Kano. Again, this has been, the government has gone back to court seeking another injunction. Will there be an end to all of these court visitations, or is there an end in sight into all of the legal implications of this particular situation in Kano? That is what we intend to find out on the program today, and we do have a constitutional lawyer in the studio this morning, Dr. Tunji Abayomi, who will be weighing in on the conversation today. Thank you, Dr. Abayomi, for being here on the program today. Now, let's start this way. We do know that this is a traditional matter, but at the end of the day, it has been taken to the court for a series of interpretations. Now, what do you make of all of this before we look at the various injunctions from the Federal High Court and the State High Court in Kano? A traditional matter, which of course now is needing a series of court interpretations to prevail. What exactly are your thoughts?
Well, I think the principal problem really is the conflict of judicial authority. And that's the aspect that the issue of jurisdiction attempted to resolve. If you look at the list, what is called the exclusive, concurrent, and so on and so forth, these are lists over which the legislative authorities of the federal and the state are empowered to make law. It separates some issues and assigns them to the federal, and some issues are also assigned to the prerogative of the state. In the same manner, the Constitution sets out the authority of the federal courts, in this case, the Federal High Court, and the authority of the state high courts. Basically, the Federal High Court is empowered to preside over issues appertaining to the interests of the federal government.
Okay.
But in addition to that, to issues relating to fundamental rights of citizens. Whereas the state high courts are entitled to preside over all other issues, excluding the issues that are invested or given to the Federal High Court. Now we have a problem here in the sense that in the issue of fundamental rights, which the Federal High Court is claiming has authority over, there's an entanglement, I would say, between fundamental rights issues, interest, and chieftaincy interest. So that's where the conflict is. You know, the Federal High Court is basically claiming, I'm not deciding the chieftaincy issue, and I'm also not presiding over the law, but I'm dealing with the fundamental rights.
Human rights of an individual.
But the problem is that the fundamental rights arose. It's like, you know,
from the chieftaincy issue.
From the chieftaincy, you know, I'm not dealing with the foundation, but I'm dealing with the roof of the house. So that's really where the problem is. Okay,
so some have criticized Justice Lima for some of his actions, and they have termed it as judicial rascality. Do you also share their line of thought?
Well, anybody can say whatever they want. Obviously, the judges are not precluded from criticism. But a judicial authority can only be said to have gone wrong when its decision is reversed by a court of appeal.
Okay.
as long as that decision is not yet reversed, it is deemed to be proper, correct, and appropriate. Now, scholars of law obviously will have divergent opinion on this issue, but that's their opinion. The only opinion that will be material and that will matter is the opinion of the Court of Appeal on this issue.
If we were to backtrack a little bit and then go back to where, the former governor, Ganduje, had deposed Sanusi Lamido in conflict with the local government authority in that state at that time, and of course causing a split in the Emirate, and where we are now, where Governor Abba Yusuf reinstated Sanusi and then again overturned the creation of the split of the Emirate at that time. Isn't this also an abuse of power by these governors at that time, also looking at their own individual interest as to the superiority of the Emirate as it was created many years ago?
That's correct. The problem is that, and this happens all over Nigeria, the authority, overwhelming authority of the executive over traditional chieftaincy matters. And it is not new. If we recall, even as far back as the old democracy, I think one of the Obas, is it Ishara, is it Oba of Ishara, or somewhere in Djibouti. In those days, during the AG and the NNDP demo, that is called in those days, I think the judge, I don't mind a penny. His allowance was reduced by the then NNDP, I think, to 1 kobo. And he said, I don't mind a kobo, because he was committed to AG and to Chief Obafemi Awolowo. The problem really is that it's a complex matter, because you also cannot have equal superior authority, political authority, or even equal superior legal authority in any state. There must be some form of hierarchy. Now we have a situation where we have authority, chieftaincy authority in any community. We also have a situation where that chieftaincy authority is subject to the executive power of the state. Now, how do you really manage it? I think the attempt of the law is to manage it in a way that there is no conflict as such. But it's not easy to do, because where, for example, a traditional authority misbehaves to the executive authority, which is actually the first authority in the state, what happens? Now, I think mainly the executive authority, the tendency, nearly in all instances, is to focus on their personal interest instead of the interest of the community and the people, and the implication of their decisions in such communities. If we look at what has happened now, this whole community is thrown into chaos. You have deposed an Emma, appointed 3 Emmas. You now deposed 3 Emmas, and reappointed another Emma. So basically, you have 5 Emmas. The one that was deposed, the 3 that were appointed, that's 4. The one that is reappointed, that's 5. In the same community. You can see the confusion. Now, in each of these instances, they have loyalties, or they have created loyalties, and so on and so forth. So the disorder is substantial. Until we find a way to regulate, if I have my way, personally, I think the issue of chieftain, what I call hereditary rulership, it should actually be abolished, in my view, because to have hereditary rulership, hereditary authority, and then you have republican authority, there is a conflict. If we study, Thomas Paine spoke about this, I think in one of his articles, when he was discussing Britain. one of the absurdity, with due respect, is that if, for example, the king, I'm sorry to say, quote unquote, is an idiot, and he has idiotic genes, he transmits it to another idiot who presides over wise men. So hereditary rule, to my mind, has a problem in a republican system of government.
Okay, part of this confusion, what do you think it's going to do to our value system, our culture, knowing full well that, excuse me, some of these traditional rulers too, they have also dabbled into political association. And of course, when a particular man or woman becomes the governor of a state and he sees that, okay, while I was trying to become the governor, you did not support me, of course, he or she will fight back. So is it that our traditional rulers are also losing their values, their respect by dabbling into politics?
Well, yes, substantially. It's not just dabbling into politics, dabbling into so many things. I mean, I have a case in court right now in which traditional here in this Lagos basically, invaded the property of a man, just a fenced property with all the documents and everything, simply because he believes that he's a traditional ruler. And he went in, got some boys, some thugs, and then was selling the property away, demolishing somebody else's property on the ground that he's a traditional ruler. So they have expanded the mischief. A lot of them, I'm talking of the traditional rulers, have expanded the mischief of disorder, that mischief that disorder causes, substantially. But because they are celebrated, they are honored, and so on and so forth, people keep quiet over this. I do not believe until we reduce substantially or find something. I do not. I think a society must evolve to a certain extent and come up with the best deal. America, looked at its system that is interested in federalism, republican government, and it abolished kingship. But in our system, we follow the British system, the rulership by heredity, which has really it causes problem in Britain, even in Britain, just as it's causing problem in our society. So the question is this: if I'm running for government and I'm the first citizen of, for example, my state, and I have an upper who has authority too, who uses his authority against me, you can see the problem. Naturally, in order for the paramountcy of my office, I will find a way to deal with the problem. On the other hand, the traditional authority feels that it needs to secure its position. If I support this guy, if he becomes governor, my authority is threatened. So we've got a duality that is actually very conflictual and threatening to peace, order, and good government.
Doctor, let's quickly go back to the last ruling, which was, of course, given by the Federal High Court days ago. And, of course, the Federal High Court did nullify the reappointment of Lamido Sanusi as the Emir of Kano, but in that judgment refused to rule on the validity of the Kano Emirate Council repeal law, which Governor Yusuf had signed when he reinstated Lamido Sanusi. And so here there is a vacuum. Yes. And so where do we go from here? Because again, the state government has said they will again appeal this judgment, because according to them, that law, that Kano Emirate Council law has been repealed. And of course, that means that Ado Bayero and the 4 other Emirate leaders stands to be deposed by that repeal law. And so now that there is a conflicting order, though the Federal High Court did say that Lamido Sanusi is in that space illegally, but didn't rule on the repeal law. Where does this leave?
It's a very complex problem, because on the one hand, the court basically sustained by its decision the validity of the new law under this new government. But at the same time, it invalidated all actions taken by the governor.
The governor.
So in essence, there is the position of the existing emas, but you cannot impose, you cannot really, you understand what I mean?
So basically, like said, it's a very complex situation.
Yeah, it's a very complex problem. So according to that decision, the action of bringing back Sanusi is invalidated. On the other hand, the law that empowers the governor to do so is validated. So I think the Court of Appeal will resolve the problem.
Okay.
And I believe that status quo ante bellum would have to prevail until the Court of Appeal does something, finds a solution to the problem. Here is another important issue there is, one of the issues raised, I believe, by the government of Kano State is that the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction.
Is that true?
Yes. Well, is it true or is it not true? If the Federal High Court is claiming that it's focusing on the fundamental right, which is right, for example, to liberty, and right to movement of the deposed Emma, then it is not true. If, on the other hand, it is about the chieftaincy, then it is true.
That they have no jurisdiction.
Yes, that they have
so
no jurisdiction.
it is the state court that has the jurisdiction to actually preside over this matter, because it is a chieftaincy matter in Kano State.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, if that's the situation, rather,
Yes.
some people are raising alarm that the politicians in Kano, they are trying to use judiciary to cause destruction of the Kano Emirates. Do you share that thought?
Yes. And I think the problem really is a complex one. The judiciary of our nation has gone through different temperatures, so to say. It's not just a matter of today. The pressure on the judiciary is just too much. Different climate, particularly from politicians, not just in relation to chieftaincy matters, in relation to election petition cases, influence peddling, and because of some level of dependency of the judiciary on the executive, it faces these challenges. So yes, we cannot rule that out, that politicians, very rarely, for example, the judges are trying, but if a governor mounts pressure on a judge, how does he resist, sustain it, deter it? It's not very easy in any of our states. I think what we need to do, in my view, is that in our nation, we need to strengthen institutions in our country. I was saying to one of the other sessions, that in our nation, individuals appear to be stronger than institutions. Well, if you look at Western countries, one of the reasons we have stability in those countries is because their institutions have institutional integrity, which is maintained by that institution. And when an individual is coming, a strong individual, the institution is strong enough to deal with it.
No matter your position.
Yes, and it matters who your position. You can see what is happening to Trump. He's a president of America. He's put before common trial, brought about by an ordinary citizen, So, and if we go to Britain too, I mean, you cannot just, a member of the House of Lords or something, he refused to pay or, for a ticket.
Even the son of Biden was before the law.
Exactly, the son of Biden, the son of president. But in our country, we rarely have this terrible situation where institutions are actually subject to the authority of individuals, and it is unfortunate. And then, influence peddling, money peddling, and so on and so forth. So I do not know. I think ultimately, in my view, is that we would have to focus on the new thinking by quite a number of us that our nation needs to find a new constitution that is befitting for a diverse society, because when we look at it, there are different excellencies that agitate the interests of our people. So if we take in our people in Southwest, government is very essential. It has always been to us. The nature of government is performances, its standing, its reputation. On the other hand, maybe in the East, commerce is the preoccupation and of great interest. Maybe in the North, religion. So we need to come to a round table and agree on the terms, a type of constitution. Because a nation is unique. I keep telling people, Nigeria is an entirely unique nation,
right,
where God divinely placed the different nationalities in different geographical zones permanently. It's very rare. In this case, the Yorubas are permanently, by divine creation, in the southwest. Igbos, by divine creation, placed in the southeast. The Kanuris in the northeast. Fulanis in the northwest, and so on and so forth. So if we are going to build what I call United Nations of Nigeria in Nwabweze's lecture, you have to come together and agree on those terms, And I do not think until we do that, we're going to have peace, order, and good government in the country. And we're also not going to have development, because you can see the feeling of the people of the nation, largely our people are dissatisfied with the state of the nation.
Doctor, again, we know that there are three arms of government, and the judiciary and the executive play a pivotal role here. If there are things to be learned in this particular situation, if we go back a bit, we remember that Justice Liman had said, maintain status quo until otherwise decided. But Governor Abba Yusuf went ahead to again present the staff of office to Lamido Sanusi, making him, of course, the substantive emir of Kano. But again, the justice has said, you should have maintained status quo like I ruled. So if Governor Abba had maintained status quo, would we still be where we are today? And if not, where does this leave us when it comes to judgment by the courts and the importance of abiding by court rulings?
Well, first and foremost, the executive and legislative authority is subject to the authority of the courts by the Constitution. You have to defer to the judgment of court. And it is based on the principle that our government may be a government of law and not of men. Now, it is not acceptable for an executive arm or even legislative arm to say, oh, the judge is wrong, and therefore I will go this way, which is basically what appears to be happening
here.
in this case. And in order to protect the three, we have three departments of government. In order to protect the integrity of the court and the superiority and the paramountcy of its decision, no court will accept a situation where an executive department in defeat of his ruling goes ahead and takes a decision that it restrains. I think that's
but then just a quick one. The governor had said at that time that Justice Liman was not even in the country. He was in his bedroom somewhere outside the country when he gave that judgment.
If he wasn't in the country, whatever a judge does, regardless of how wrong, you go to the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
That's the only solution to it. You don't go to your own Court of Appeal.
By yourself.
Yes, you understand what the Justice, what the executive governor had done is to go to his own Court of Appeal. You know what I mean? In essence, overturn or reverse. He should have gone to the Court of Appeal. You understand? For example, now they have appealed to the Court of Appeal on the question of jurisdiction.
Right.
That's what you should do. I think any court would be right, in my view, to frown against the disrespect of his ruling, even if that ruling is perceivably wrong.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? It is not your duty, the exam, because if we allow that, no decision will be respected or will be considered respectable, either by the legislative arm or
the executive arm.
the executive arm.
Okay, as it is now, would things have been better if the judiciary is independent of the executive? Would it have been better? And then where does all of this drama leave Bayero and Sanusi? Who is the real emir of Kano as we speak?
Well, I think the matter will be resolved by the Court of Appeal, in my view. I think the matter will be resolved by the Court of Appeal. It's going to be a complex problem. But you know, in my view, resolution by law is not resolution by tradition. So ultimately, I think they will have to find some way to resolve the problem, politically or traditionally. But in terms of the legal resolution, the Court of Appeal, I'm sure, will, right now, what's going to happen is that we have Emma that are not in office. That's what we have now. We have Emmas that are not in office. So for them to be in office, we'll have to wait for the Court of Appeal.
Okay, and I asked you that would things have been better if the judiciary had been independent of the executive?
Yes, yes. But even then, the nature of the judiciary that we have now, because we have two parallel lines. We have the state judicial system, we have the federal judicial system. And where, for example, one goes to the federal and another goes to the state. And they have no authority because they are coordinate judicial system, you know, you have this problem. It's scarcely a problem. But independence of the judiciary will be good in the sense that maybe it will allow the courts to think a little bit independently of the consequences of his decision, for example, on the executive.
Right.
And it will also allow it to deter and resist the pressure of. But let me remind you that in our constitution, this so-called constitution, what's called the Decree 24 of forced on us as a people by the military illegally and illegitimately, the judiciary is expected to be independent.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Is expected.
It's expected. It's the provision gives it independence, you know. So if it becomes dependent, then that's the choice
Of the judiciary. Okay.
But to make that choice, to make the choice of independence also depends on quite a number of criteria. It depends on the management of the judiciary. It depends on, you know,
The system itself.
The system itself. It depends on even the structure of government that we have now. I mean, for example, why should we have the federal, the state? Why should we not have Supreme Court of the state? For example,
rather than keep waiting for the federal Supreme Court.
You understand what I mean? And then allow and then allow the Supreme Court of the federal Supreme Court only to take constitutional cases. You know, as it is now, every case
goes to the Supreme Court.
It's not just to the Supreme Court; it goes through the federal judicial system. You know, every case. You take a case from the state, it goes to the Court of Appeal, which is a federal Court of Appeal, and then to the Supreme Court. You know, in the old days, I think we had Western Region Court of Appeal. Yeah, at that time, so you can take a matter, for example, issue of chieftaincy, you can take it and so on and so on. But there is so much confusion because in this constitution, everything was taken over by the federal government, and then there is total confusion in our land.
Doctor, for peace to reign in Kano as we speak, what should Governor Yusuf be doing? Because as we speak, the Nasarawa Palace, where the deposed Ado Bayero was also living, has been demolished. And it looks like every sense of reasoning, if not well taken care of, could be thrown into the caution in Kano. And so for that state to continue to enjoy peace and a peaceful atmosphere, what should Governor Abba Yusuf be doing?
I think he should. The problem really is that what I would call personality clash. The effect of personality clash and maybe political clashes, clashes and clatters, so to say, tend to negatively impact on the society. I mean, I do not know what happened between Ganduje and Sanusi, you know, but
Abba Yusuf was in the middle.
Yes, you understand what I mean? Yeah, you know, so that problem led to the creation of 3 Emirates. But are you not bound by what has gone before you? You know, I mean, here is the issue. But if you now say that you're not bound by it, then how do you do it? So you now look at the legislative department. Okay, we are talking of the governor, talking of how about the legislative department? Is it not the same legislative department that passed a law that essentially established 3 Emirates? That same legislative department now, House of Assembly, now repealed
That
now,
law.
within a question of 2 years that they passed a law, we repealed that law and brought in another, you know, the legislative department has become a trader of disorder, so to say. So
Some have also fingered Kwankwanso in all of this, because he's the godfather of Governor Abba.
Yes, of course. Yes, there's nothing wrong with yes. But that is it. Look, here is the whole essence of creating institutions is to be able to be strong enough to do right, to withstand the pressure from individuals. That's why America says that our government may be a government of law and not of men. If Kwankwanso is pressuring, must the House of Assembly be defeated in its consideration of his decisions, of his laws on the people of Kano. So there are serious issues, serious need for deep thinking in our country over the structure of government, the power of government agents, and what I would call the aristocracy of the institutions.
All right, I think we'd have to leave this conversation here today, but Dr. Tunji Abayomi has, one of the things he said today is the creation and sustaining of institutions rather than the building and development of men. Thank you so much, Dr. Abayomi, for coming on the program today. We appreciate you.
Thank you very
But I'm
much.
sure that, of course, time will tell, and, of course, the ruling by the Court of Appeal will either be taken by the Kano State government, and, of course, again, if they feel otherwise, I guess the Supreme Court might be the end, might be the deciding factor.
The next 17 years.
The drama goes on.
May take 17 more years.
So we do not know the end of this particular matter from now, but I'm sure time will tell. Thank you so much for watching this segment of the conversation. We'll take a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.